Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you the Subterranean Assault video. You all have no clue how many tries it has taken me to get this, hopefully right this one. Uh, I've delayed this video because I didn't know how to talk about it without being the negative Nancy. It's not to say that I don't like it, and in fact, right here, I want to take this moment to say I like it. It's really good. GW. If there's somebody that is watching this, GWHQ, or designed it on the team, whatever, thank you. This is really good. It's fluffy. It has potential. It's banger. And most importantly, it's not keyword locked. My first impression was a bit lukewarm. Uh, it was more relief than anything. I didn't look at a bunch of you can take a burrower and +1 to hit. A burrower gets -1 to hit. A burrower can go up. A burrower can go down. Like I didn't see a bunch of that. So that was my first relief. That was my first reaction was pure relief. Now, uh, the reason I was going to be, or kind of will be later in the video, be a negative Nancy is because I want to talk about why the higher level players aren't freaking out about this detachment. But first, because I know that people sometimes don't make it to the end, I'm going to tell you how to make people freak out about this detachment and the potential that's really good there. And then we'll talk about later what the troubles are with this detachment. So first off, Subterranean Assault. What do you get? The detachment rule, surprise assault. Each time a Tyranids model from your army makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. Each time a burrower unit, from your army is set up on the battlefield from reserves, place a circular 40mm tunnel marker anywhere on the battlefield within 1 inch of that unit and more than 3 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. In the reinforcement step of your movement phase, when you set up a unit on the battlefield from reserve, you can set that unit up wholly within 9 inches of one of your tunnel markers and more than 6 inches horizontally away from any enemy units. If an enemy model, excluding aircraft, ends any kind of move within 3 inches of one of your tunnel markers, that tunnel marker is removed from the battlefield. Keywords: Moloch and Trigons gain Burrower. 2 Trigons can become characters, meaning one can be a warlord, and they both can take enhancements. Cool. So, uh, again, I'm going to save the negative Nancying for later, but I do really want to address this first point because it is really important. First and foremost, people, please read and play and don't do illegal shit. A lot of the hysteria comes from forgetting that the tunnel marker has to be placed within 1 inch of the burrower. You put up a Trigon, put up a Moloch, put up Raveners. The tunnel marker has to be within 1 inch of them and 3 inches away from all enemy units. And you don't get to throw it 3, 6, 9 inches away. It has to be right next to them. And then this is the big one. If an enemy model ends any kind of move within 3 inches of one of your tunnel markers, it's destroyed. It's removed. Uh, you gotta just keep that in mind. I'm not seeing people remember as that the tunnel markers have to go. It's like, well, I'll just do this again next time. It's like, no, you got to pick it up, Chief. So those are the quick ones that I want to talk about. Now let's talk about how to break it. Um, Starters, Trigons, and Molochs. You're taking them. I think that it's a little bit bait to take too many. You don't want to fill your list with a bunch of things that don't do a bunch of things, okay? So currently, I think you're fine with 2 to 3 because they are still 3-up save monsters with no invuln and T10. So a shot or two, you're just out of here. Takes off your detachment rule, but on the flip side, if you have 6 snakes on a plane, The plane's going down with the snakes and ain't shit happening, okay? So, uh, sorry, just weird moment there. I usually never say ain't, so my brain just kind of had a weird thing right there. The plane's going down, okay? Next, Malisceptor. People are pretty right about this one. I think that you should be taking the Malisceptor, but not for the reasons uh, that people kind of think. And so, a lot of people are excited about getting the 6-inch aura encephalic diffusion, getting that out there. 6-inch aura, while an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll, and if the enemy unit is below half strength, subtract 1 from the wound roll as well. Don't throw away your models, people. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not throwing 170 points that you can't do anything with. I don't know why all of a sudden we started lying to ourselves that the Malisceptor's melee is something to write home about, but it's never been. Let's stop that. But the thing that is good to write home about is its ranged weapon, which is blast. So if you can touch your opponent in 6 inches, they can touch you. You don't want to throw your Malisceptor out there just to put -1 to hit on people when they could just turn off the good part of you, which is your gun. So you have Psychic Overload, Blast, Psychic, 18 inches, D6 plus 3, hitting on 3, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3. Now, a couple of things with the Malisceptor. First off, Enfilading Emergence. End of your movement phase. 1 Tyranid unit from your army that was set up as reinforcements this turn until the end of your next fight phase. Weapons equipped by models in your unit have sustained hit 1 and ignore cover. So that means in your shooting phase, your Malisceptor has AP2. That's as good as an Exocrine's AP3 receiving cover. Because that's just how that works, okay? Same amount of attacks. The benefit of this is that you don't have to walk your fucking Malisceptor in front of your opponent and hope it can get within range. You can take the tunnel, and then if they shoot at your Malisceptor, you have a 4-up invuln. It's not the best thing in the world. I guess it could be a 3-up like the Lion, or I believe Gilliman too. Or it could, hell, even be a 2-up like Makari. But 4-up is pretty solid for what we have at T11 on top of that. So you get some shots and you live. You can replenishing swarms. Your movement phase. 1 Tyranid unit from your army, wholly within 9 inches of one or more tunnel markers you placed. 1 model in your unit regains up to D3 plus 1 lost wounds, or you can return up to D3 plus 1 destroyed models with a wounds characteristic of 1 to your unit with their full wounds remaining instead. Okay. So, the thing about that, again, if you live, regen a Malisceptor, that's pretty good. Do it again. But even better, keen-eyed people have noticed about Tunnel Network that end of your movement phase, 1 Tyranid unit from your army that is wholly within 9 inches of one or more of your tunnel markers, remove your unit from the battlefield and set it up again, wholly within 9 inches of another tunnel marker, 6 inches away from enemies. Cool. We don't have access to fall back and shoot except for Synaptic Nexus and Tyranid, ranged Tyranid warriors, okay? We don't really get that a lot here. So, getting a form of that, being able to move from one situation and go to another or get the same angle is pretty good, and go about it that way. And if you get tagged, that's when it helps to have encephalic diffusion. When if you wanted to live, somebody tried to tie you up, there you go. There's the -1 to hit to keep you here and 4-up invulnerable save, and if you put them below half strength because you shot them with sustained hits, re-rolling 1, ignore cover, damage 3, D6 plus 3 blast, then there's -1 to wound to keep you alive and get out of that situation. So Malisceptor build, looking pretty spicy. I expect those to get sold out for us again. There was a couple of months ago, it was really hard to buy a Malisceptor. So, Malisceptor, I do think you should be continuing on with that and going on with that. Hive Tyrant. Why the Hive Tyrant instead of Swarmy? So, Swarmlord Malign Presence is another thing like with Malisceptor. Don't throw your monster away. yeah, you could get malign presence in your opponent's face quicker. If this model is your warlord, each time your opponent targets a unit from their army with a stratagem, if that unit is within a foot of this model, increase the cost of the use of that stratagem by 1 command point. You could do that, 220 points. But if Swarmy dies, you've lost 220 points and you're no longer getting Hive Commander. At the start of your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, you gain 1 command point. This detachment, here's another big reason why pros aren't really flipping out about it. It is extremely command point hungry. And the only thing you do on your opponent's phase is uppy, or I guess downy, to come uppy later. That's all. Everything else is in your turn. So it's really hard to keep command points for all of the things you're going to want to do. So, Swarmy is good for that, but don't throw Swarmy away just to get malign presence on board. Now, why do I say the Hive Tyrant? Well, yes, the ability did just get nerfed. Now it's once per battle round instead of once per turn to reduce the cost of a stratagem CP, right? Uh, or reduce the cost of a stratagem CP. Yes, I did. But you also get lethal hits and the detachment that you are re-rolling ones. And if you haven't picked up what I'm putting down yet, or put down what I'm picking up, whatever. It's too much about the burrowing jokes. Either way, lethal hits re-rolling for range, that means you're getting lethal hits more often, and you're still getting the benefit of reducing CP cost in a CP hungry detachment. Now, if we go to the build like Assimilation Swarm, where you take both of the tyrants, double tyrant build, or, what we saw in Crusher Stampede, where you drop the Tyrant Guard and just bring both of them. We've seen that in Crusher Stampede, and we've seen the triple Tyrant with Tyrant Guard and Assimilation Swarm, Synaptic Nexus, right? You could do that, and then maybe there's a conversation there, but I do want to remind you that you only have so many points in your list. So I'm not saying that Swarmlord is a bad pick. I'm just saying you might want to consider the Hive Tyrant again. Welcome back, old friend. Um, you only got so many points in your list, and if you're already looking at a quarter of your list taken up, and then have to bring in snakes to make your detachment run, you're running out of points to do things. So I'd say currently, with the range aspect of what we're doing here, you probably want to look at the Hive Tyrant just a little bit. Now, I accidentally touch Zoe's thing. We already know the think tank is good here. We already got Neurotyrant and Zoe's. We know that's good. Now, I don't think that it's mandatory, but we've already seen how good Uppy, Downy, Zoe, Think Tank is in Vanguard Onslaught. So, until something changes, I think this is still a really solid inclusion. Screamer Killers. Apparently, all of us kind of can figure out basic situations that Screamer Killers are decent here. Not only do you have an okay ranged weapon, their points went down, and you get past the thing that was so infuriating about bringing a Screamer Killer. They have their arms stretched out wide, they're only 8 inches, and they have 10 wounds. It's easy to pop them. But now, if you can get in range again with that 18-inch gun, D6 plus 3, hey, we like that. Now, mind you, hitting on 4s this time, but still rerolling 1s because of the detachment. Strength 8, AP 2, damage 1. Battle shock test with Death Scream. In your shooting phase, after this model is shot, select one unit hit by one or more of those attacks. That unit must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from the test. That's cute. That means that you could fling that in a direction 18 inches now that you're up the board thanks to tunnels, to help out the Neurotyrant Think Tank, because if no less, while this model is leading a unit, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. If the target is battle shocked, add 1 to the wound roll as well. Now you can just fling that in one direction to get your Zoe's Think Tank online, but you also steal now the part that everybody really loves so far, you can make some 6-inch charges, Swarming Assault or not, right? Swarming Assault, your charge phase, one Tyranid monster from your army that was set up as reinforcements this turn until the end of phase. Friendly Tyranid units within 6 inches of your unit can reroll charge rolls. So cool. Get your Screamer Killers, 10 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 10, AP2, damage 3 into combat with a 90mm base. And I really want to stress the base part because a lot of things are ambitious, okay? Next, Norns. That was my first reaction. You tell me I could put a Norn somewhere in an easier way, I'm in, okay? I do think the Norn Emissary offers you again more because you want to look at mixed / ranged more so than melee in this detachment, in my opinion so far. I'll explain more in a bit. But Norn Emissary, Psychic Tendril, Neuroblast, Blast Psychic, 18 inches. Again, we see 18 inches usually was a pain point for us. 2d6, hitting on 2s, strength 6, AP2, damage 1. If you make this sustained, ignore cover, that means not only do you get your 2d6 on that, it carries over to your fight phase for your 10 attacks. That's pretty good. Also, if you need to do the Melta, it applies to the Melta and then to your 10 attacks. That's pretty good here. So Norns being able to go through a tunnel onto their objective to get a 5 up Feel No Pain, OC of 15, T11, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 16 wounds. Pretty good. I do want to touch on the other Norn for a second. I probably should. Norn Assimilator. You can use Tox Injector Harpoon to harpoon a monster or vehicle to add 2 to your charge. 275, 100mm base. A little bit bigger than Screamer Killer. I think that's also fine too. If, like, big caveat here, if this is kind of the main melee threat you want to invest in, I don't think you should get too ambitious and declare that your opponent's objective marker, home field objective marker, is the selected objective marker for singular purpose. I don't think we should get that silly with it. But because you already have reroll hit rolls of 1 and you hit on 2s, you really don't need to do the select one enemy unit that we never do, but, really don't worry about it in this detachment. Do a safer objective marker, probably, okay? Let's chill out for a second. But, hey, if you can pull off the enemy home, yeah, that's the enemy stronghold, sure, fine. Power to you, that's pretty damn funny. But I think you just, pop a monster or vehicle that's on an objective that you don't want it to be on, maybe your opponent's expansion, maybe the midfield, and call it a day. And keep the Norn Assimilator there for that, right? And speaking of keeping there, in all of these takes, I forgot to mention, you still have to remember when you can bring things in from reserves. Like, if you started on the board and you go second, yeah, do the uppy, downy, cool, whatever. But, like, turn 1, that doesn't just mean you could bring everything in. You still gotta wait. So, there's that. Next, Old One Eye and the Carnifexes. At first, I said, yeah, that could be cool, because I read Infilating Emergence. Then I was like, I already got reroll hit rolls of 1, I don't really need this. And I took it back out, and I think a couple of us did. But now I'm back on to thinking about the Wrecking Crew. Because if you can get them past the first hump, and then somebody shoots them at all, and it's very rare that they'll take out both of the Carnifexes and Old One Eye without leaving blistering assault possible in an angle that you set up through a tunnel. It's highly unlikely, and then once they do, you crash into them, and now you have a threat in your opponent's deployment zone. That's what we're talking about here. Now, I don't mean you set up 3 105 by 70mm bases directly in the deployment zone. I mean, you got up past your deployment zone, a little bit past the midfield, no man's land, and then went. Okay? Then we went. Especially with, 24 shots of 7-2-1, ignoring cover, sustain, re-rolling hit rolls of 1. Or re-rolling hits. So, because of old One Eye. And then, again, with the sustain carrying over to the fight phase, old One Eye can still do the thing, whatever it may need to be, with some charges. And also, if the monster is the one that got set up, your charge phase, one monster from your army that was set up as reinforcements, if you have a Trigon that got set up, and you just so happen to end 6 inches around it, you can still get the reroll charges. It's not everybody that got set up. It's everybody within 6 inches of the thing that's set up. So you can still get some re-rolling charges off with this thing. So now, with this could be really good part out the way. I shouldn't say out the way, but out of covered. Now I can be a hater. No, I'm not serious, but I do want to talk about the warning things, like a good couple of the warning things, and why high-level players aren't freaking out like not high-level players. For starters, we've seen this. Demonic Incursion, we've seen monsters drop 6 inches away and do shenanigans. We've seen that. And then people would wonder, why did they add reroll hit rolls of 1 to this? Well, we got Warpbane Task Force for Tyranids. Grey Knights do Deep Strike all day, every day. And Warpbane Task Force still looks insane to me. But as I've learned from Grey Knight players, even with a 2-up save and a 4-up invuln, sometimes, if your data sheets just aren't as insane to match the insane rules, things don't end up as insane. Warpbane Task Force, you get reroll hit rolls of 1. If you're in hollowed ground and around a purifier, full rerolls to hit. That's pretty darn good. So, yeah, that's kind of why they're not freaking out. We've seen it so far a couple of times now. And also, going to Gene Stealer cults, an old friend, Cult Ambush. Okay? Cult ambush markers. That didn't work for them. And because this is why I'm like, hey, people, please remember to remove the markers. That's the other thing. Cult ambush had issues with the marker situation, and we kind of will too, because if the opponent's fast, like Emperor's Children, World Eaters, New Space Wolves, like any of that shit, they're not going to leave you spaces to put your markers and leave your markers. Your opponent isn't stupid. Anybody that's ever had trouble dropping 10 gargoyles, your opponent will screen things out. There's that. If your opponent is playing a Horde army, they're playing GSC, hell, they're playing Green Tide, they're playing Crude Hunting Pack, you won't have too many spaces to drop 120 by 92 millimeter monsters to then drop 120 by 92 millimeter monsters. So that's kind of why when I'm asked about the Psychopage and horror specs, it's nice. Like, again, don't get me wrong, if you can pull it off in the deployment, in your opponent's enemy deployment zone, that's fine. But it's a lot of setup, it's a lot of points. You're looking at 110 for the Psychophage, another 125 for a horror spec, and at least 140 for a Trigon or a Moloch. I guess you could technically 125 for Raveners, but that's a lot for probably not 300 plus points worth to pick up a model in the charges, right? It's probably not happening on that one. So it has a lot of counterplay, and that's why I don't fancy the melee aspect of trying to build out for that in Subterranean Assault. However, it should be noted you can still make getting, again, that mid-board part, you can kind of erase that. If you place a marker closer to you and you just deploy further but 6 away from your enemy just to get across the having to go through 1, 2, 3 buildings or whatever. Well, you're not getting through 3 buildings in any terrain layout, but you know what I mean. If you can skip that part, it's fine. And that's kind of why, for me, thinking about it more, this reads to me like Crusher Stampede with a different step. I was already taking Trigon in Crusher Stampede. Now I just got to take another one and do a tunnel. And I get ignore cover and shooting again. I get to heal. Rerolling hit rolls of 1 is mathematically equivalent to +1 to hit. So, and I don't have to be wounded. I don't get +1 to wound, but I get sustained, and that's fine. And another way to spread synapse on something. All of these things. To me, this reads Crusher Stampede, but it has some flavor from Assimilation Swarm. It has this is straight up Host of Ascension's rule. Like I didn't. Well, again, going back to Gene Stealer Coach, where's Host of Ascension? They just said instead of having to set up that turn, you just get it for a command point. That's fine by me. So, there's that. They just gave us good things here. They gave us Vanguard Onslaught, Downy, Uppy, Downy, whatever you want to call it this time around. But yeah, that's what happened there. So, while I'm not a fan of the melee build of Subterranean Assault, and I think that's a lot of investment for some things, you can shoot Malisceptors, Zoes, hell, maybe Rupture Effects, that has a blank, right? Has a blank. That way you can get out of there the next time you need to, but you got a good angle on a tank. All of those things you can do. But again, I think you still want to look at the mixed aspect. That way, if you do get shots down and then can follow up with a 6-inch charge, well, admittedly, hopefully you lift a couple of models, so it might be a little bit longer, but a re-rollable charge, then it's fine. However, I say all that, and this is why I think Subterranean Assault can be insane, but again, other people keep sleeping on a thing that's insane that can do this. This is one of mine that I really have a gripe with. Everybody has that faction that I'm just like, how are you getting away with this shit? Everybody thinks that Tyranids still have things from 8th and 9th. It's like, oh, you can reroll, you can do that. I can't do that, guys. I can't. I'm sorry. The thing that gets me worked up like this, that now I hope that we can emulate, Black Spear Task Force. I don't know how Deathwatch fucking do it. Sustained hits 1, drop down, kill something, leave with range. If you really need to finish it off with some heavier melee, yeah, sure. Black Spear Task Force, if we can build out like kill teams for Deathwatch, that's when Subterranean Assault might feel like a lot, because we'd be doing it with monsters and not just oddly hard to kill Space Marines, right? Or harder than expected to kill, because they're not like fragile and they're not like Deathwing Knight tough or anything like that, but you're still like, this took me more than I expected. Either way, if we can build like that, Subterranean Assault can be really fucking good. But as it currently stands, I want to warn people about skewing hard into melee. Like in general, like you still have to set up, okay? And then you still have to make the charge. So, yeah, 6 inches is usually enough. You all know what I'm talking about. 6 inches, usually enough, right? We all have that. But we have all also fallen short a couple of times and was go like, oh, that's it. So, you're not immune to rolling Snake Eyes into Snake Eyes, but why put yourself in that position when it could be, I drop Think Tank here, I drop Wrecking Crew here, I shoot all of this, Wrecking Crew steal charge, or you shoot Wrecking Crew and then it goes forward into you, and then I charge. Or Screamer Killer drops over here, turns on Think Tank over there. Because 18 inches, but now I didn't have to run up the board with my meaty claws hanging out. All of these things, I just say that Subterranean Assault is looking pretty good for, once again, ranged. That's the build we keep skewing to, and if it helps you feel better, okay? Trigon, 140, same points as an Exocrine. And now that you don't need the rerolls, hit rolls of 1, because we have that in the detachment, you can just drop 2 Exocrines, or 3, I guess, if that's the build that you were doing. I suggest 2 and then 2 Malisceptors so far. You do that. And again, you don't want to yeet your Trigons everywhere because you need them to do the detachment. So, like, put them somewhere safe behind walls and shits just to be taxis, essentially, to get your other shit out there. But you can still fight with the Trigons and Molochs. Like, there's still. This is your melee if you're like, I really want a full melee build. I mean, sure, but I would advise don't forget that the Trigon still has 12 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 9, AP 2, damage 3. In here, you can make it Synapse with either the enhancement for Trigon Prime, turning this to hitting on 2, strength 11 with Synapse, or with using Synapse, or the stratagem to just make them Synapse, so then you go to strength 10 on Trigon or strength 9 on Moloch. Like, this has a lot of good coverage, and it'll get insane when we can emulate Deathwatch bullshit, but put monsters in that spot and then do that. But yeah, it's pretty solid, and I can understand why some people were hyperventilating. But don't cheat. Don't forget that there's still some restrictions that you do have to keep in mind. So, you know, I like it. I will be toying around with it probably, and I hope that you do too. So, hey, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.